I didn't see anything in my email. You know how we usually get the.
No, no, it wasn't.
Okay.
I will send it out right now. We just finished getting everything in, so
Okay.
I will send you what we have. It's not, I don't think it's complete, and it hasn't been sort of edited.
That's okay. That's why we have this meeting.
Yeah.
Nice hair, Marissa.
Thank you.
Looks great.
Good weather.
No rain, right?
That's right.
You know, Marisa, usually for the full board, Wally would ask if anyone was unable to attend. And we never really did that for exec. So maybe from now on, like on Tuesday morning, you could send out a note just saying, you know, if anyone can't attend, please let us know. That way we're not waiting.
Will do.
Okay. Sam, I think is the only one missing.
Oh, Sam's here.
Sam's
Sam's
here?
Sure.
Oh, I'm looking at my list.
I'm here.
Ah, there you are. Okay, I think we're all here then. Let me see. Are there 10 of us? Yeah, everybody's here. Okay.
So the draft agenda just went out. It should hopefully hit your emails.
Okay. Yeah, my phone is dinging. Let me turn it off. Okay. So this is the executive committee meeting of CB5. Let me see if we have anybody attending. I don't see anyone. Do you, Marisa? And if that's the case, I don't have to go through all.
No.
Then I'm not going to go through all the explanation. I don't think I need to. Do
Yeah,
I?
I think the only person that had registered as possible was Annabelle from Senator Hoylman's office, but I don't see her here.
Okay. It's the exec committee of CB5. We follow the same format as we do for the full board meeting. We have a public session and no one's here tonight, so I guess we won't have to have a public session.
Sorry, I just noticed we do have somebody in the public, but they're an elected rep.
Okay.
It's Brian from the Borough President's Office.
Okay. Good. Hi, Brian. All right, let's get down to business. Let's start. I wanted to start. Marissa has been working on a number of projects, a huge number of projects. And one of them is the establishment of a constituent services log. So Marissa, would you like to speak to that? And then maybe the website update as well.
Sure. So some of you, when I spoke with you, expressed an interest in staying up to date on the kinds of issues that the district office was hearing about. So we have set up a constituent services log that will just track constituent issues that come into the office and their agency, how they get resolved, etc. Luke has set that up, and it will be shared with all your committee Gmails. So the Beck's Gmail, land use Gmail, transportation Gmail, etc. So any of you will be able to go in at any time and just look at it at your leisure. It's a sort of basic Excel spreadsheet, so you can sort it the way you want. But if you'd like me to go through it with you at any time, that's no problem. So that should be good to go. Have we actually shared the Gmails already, Luke?
Yeah, I sent it. If you log into the shared Google Drive for your committee, you should be able to find it by searching the tab or selecting the tab Shared with Me, and it'll be the most recent item.
Thank you. We've also taken a good look at the website, which just needed a bit of updating. And as we were doing that, we thought about some of the items that were listed there. So I'm going to follow up and send you a full sort of outline of all the different updates and changes that we're making. A lot of them are just very standard. There were some elected official offices that were missing. For example, we added some things under About Us, some basic operational updates. So I will send you that list. And then there are, I think, some items that just need to be thought about a bit more with all of you, particularly under the special projects and resources sections. So if you would all take this next month to spend some time on the website, take a look at those sections particularly. There are some items under there that I think are incomplete, for example, under special projects, either missing explanatory cover pages or pictures or updates to them that may have come since they were last posted. And then if you want to take a look at your own committee page as well and see if it still makes sense to you, if there's anything you want to add or edit, that would be appreciated. So I'll send that to you. I'll send that list to you that week, and then we can check back on it at the next exec committee board meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marissa.
Sure.
Marissa and I also talked about the thought about you may want to include on the website like special reports that we've put out. I think we have some there under resources, but think about things that we've done that would be helpful to be on the website if someone were to, either have to call the board office to find out about it, if it was important enough to share it on the website as well for each of the individual committees, or what we've done, as a board as a whole. So any thoughts or changes or additions that you may have, we'll be really, happy to hear them. Okay. Let's go into our full board agenda. First off, does anyone have any of the committees that did not have resolutions or did not meet, does anyone have an update or a report? No. Okay.
Yes, Carol, no.
Okay. And T&E was no, and Parks was no, right? Clayton?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
You want me to bring up an issue for next month at this point, or wait till the end?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, we heard two presentations from DOT this month, and we also had a discussion about the Director of Public Realm, which was a good sort of preparatory discussion, I think, for what'll come out of Bex. But the two DOT presentations were two topics, and we kind of received interim reports on both, and no board action was required or would frankly do anything at this time. But as is often the case with any street use issue that comes up, the committee once again had a conversation about how many members of the committee and many members of the community and other advocacy groups that we hear from, like neighborhood associations, have major problems with the enforcement or lack thereof on bicycles and street use and traffic issues. It's a very perennial issue, and we kind of essentially figure at this point that it'll keep coming up and it'll keep dragging down almost every other issue that we talk about as a committee if we don't sort of address it head on as its own topic. What we're considering doing for, I think, the next cycle, the T&E meeting that'll happen in 2 weeks, is potentially assigning the topic to 2 to 4 members of the committee, sort of along the lines of what we did with the bike sharing issue in the past, to give them kind of ample time to research, contact elected official offices, and sort of figure out what it makes sense to essentially adopt as a dedicated position of CB5, as opposed to just sticking in calls for enforcement to every other resolution that we pass. So I sort of wanted to flag it as something that we're thinking about doing, get people's thoughts as to whether or not there would be any complications or problems with that, and just kind of let you know that it might be something that we take up as a committee next month.
And we've got a real mixed bag in terms of that whole subject vis-a-vis the full board. I know I saw the email you got from Dave Akilis. So I'm sure you're right. That's going to be, I wonder if we should share that with everyone. Want to check with Dave? Or don't you think we should? With everyone, meaning all of us, exec.
Sorry, what was the question? Yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring it up here. I can certainly respond to Dave if we decide to move forward in this way, and let him know that that we are going to do that kind of thing. You know, I think there are specific people on T&E who are very vocal about the issue. Joel, who he CC'd when he emailed us, that's one of them. And there are certain people who it makes sense to kind of hand this diligence to.
I was only thinking of sharing it with the exec committee. That's what I meant.
Oh, the email.
Yeah,
oh, sure. I can.
Just so they have a feel for, what that side of the whole argument is. I think we do know, but it's very clear, and he's been talking with a lot of people, and he really speaks for a huge number of residents in the 50s. So, okay. All right. To be next month's topic of the month, I guess.
Well, for T&E at least. Yeah, but that's the way we thought of approaching it. Again, there's kind of a model there with some of the e-bike research that was done by sorry, Sam, remind me who.
It was John Raybar.
John Raybar did that in the past. Yep, but we also think that we haven't had a lot of agenda items recently. Giving this to 3 or 4 folks on the committee can kind of spread the work. They can do kind of comprehensive research on it before coming to the committee. And
Are
as
you thinking, EJ, that it would come to committee for discussion with no, just to keep it, get the ball rolling on what we're going to do? Or were you thinking of having some sort of a resolution or a position?
I think it really depends whether or not their research and discussion with reps from elected offices leads to an obvious board action, or if not, it might just be the beginning of an ongoing discussion.
Okay,
I think I have, sort of come to the realization that yelling at DOT to do more really doesn't accomplish anything, because they don't feel like they have any enforcement authority. And as far as I can tell, they don't. Yelling at NYPD to do more doesn't accomplish anything, because they seemingly don't want to. So it really seems to come down to what we would want to press the elected officials, either the city council or the mayor's office, to take action on, to either reassign authority or charge NYPD to do more, etc. So I think any type of action would have to be in that realm, calling on electeds to do something.
okay.
But I don't want to say for sure that we would come up with a specific board action. But I do think it's important to address it as a dedicated topic.
Sure, okay. Anyone have any thoughts or comments or questions?
Just to say that EJ and I had this discussion. It's come up numerous times. There has always been, when bike lanes come up as a topic of discussion and we have to weigh in on them, there's always been a vocal transportation alternatives pro-bike group that shows up to those meetings. And I agree with EJ. I think it's hit the point where if we don't start thinking about it independently before those bike lane resolutions come to us, we're going to start getting pushback on every single one where we just deny for no, without having a position ourselves.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Okay. Before we get into the reso, so no one else on any of the other committees had any input or reporting, even just to us. Renee, you sent around, you sent just this afternoon, this mayor had made a new decision on mental illness.
Oh, I thought that was exciting. Yes.
Yeah.
Something that we asked about. I didn't know if people had known about it or not, but I thought it was interesting that the city has agreed not to send the police on mental health calls, but instead they're going to send mental health professionals along with the EMTs. So that's sort of an exciting new position. Yay.
Yeah. Kind of fits in with things that we're, taking away or putting elsewhere with the police. Okay. All right, then moving on to our resolutions. Why don't you continue, Renee, with budget and district needs statement?
Okay, so I have a report, but I don't know that you need to. A few people came to the committee. Justin Flagg came. We had Councilmember Powers, Chief of Staff, and we also had Laurie from the Speaker's office. They spoke to us about what was going on with voting and about certain pending bills that would affect the Board of Elections going forward. And I can go through those later because the meat of it was our resolution to adopt the budget items. There are 4 pieces of this. The first is the district needs statement. I think you all have a copy there. There's emphasis on addressing the needs of the increased homelessness that we're seeing in the district, the quality of life concerns, the economic recovery, and all the needs around that. Sanitation, that budget has been severely cut. Composting, electronic recycling, access to iPads and computers and Wi-Fi for all of the students in the districts that are learning remotely. There's a need, obviously, EJ referenced it, for enforcement of violations, anything from illegal vending to bike infractions. We're clear that we're not asking for the NYPD to handle the enforcement in all these different areas, but we're asking that certain enforcement be transferred to other agencies. Obviously, affordable housing, always an issue. That's addressed, as well as traffic and safe public transportation. And then finally, we also highlight the need for the director of the public realm to make sense of how the public space is utilized and how our light and air can be protected. I don't want to read through it all. I assume you've all had a chance to have a look at it. Is there any questions or any comments about the language or the way that it's set out?
No?
No? Okay. So if that's okay, we also have the survey, and I've sent to most of the committees the survey. And what the survey is, in every single silo, the most pressing issue had to be selected. So we had to pick 3 most pressing issues in the district. They've been identified as economic development, obviously because of the pandemic, economic development and recovery, homelessness, and quality of life issues, and that includes noise, graffiti, and petty crime. Those were chosen, we based those issues upon the things that we saw most frequently in the district. We talked to Luke, we looked at what came into the board office, we looked at 311 complaints, we had input from our committee members, we talked to people like Coalition from the Homeless, we talked to the bids. So those were the top 3. And then in each silo, we had to pick the single most pressing item. There was a selection, and I think you might have, we've had a little snafu. That's a live document. So I've been loath to mess with it too much because I'm afraid if I do, it's going to just go into OMB. So Marissa and I are trying to figure out how everybody can get a look at that survey. I think everybody, at least I know EJ had it, Clayton had it when you pick your most pressing thing. In healthcare and human services, preventing homelessness was the #1. In youth education and child welfare, remote learning and technology was the most important issue. In public safety and emergency services, we had public nuisance, which is noise and other disturbances, simply because on the 311 logs we're out of the park. It's even higher than it has been at any time. In core infrastructure and city services and resilience, noise pollution again. In housing, economic development, and land use, small business services and support this year is #1. Small businesses were always a concern. It was always in the budget, but the pandemic has certainly heightened that issue. In transportation and mobility, traffic safety and enforcement is #1 as per our transportation committee. And with the caveat that they and we, I believe, would like to see this enforcement shifted so it becomes the work of DOT and not the NYPD, or at least that's the BEX committee view. In parks, culture, and other community facilities, we put it in other, and we ranked the creation of the Office of the Public Realm along with appropriate staffing as #1. That has been heard at every single committee in this, pretty much every single committee in this board. And so we thought that was something the board cares deeply about. And that's it apart from the expense and capital budget. There is language underneath each of those ticks that sort of expands on why we made those selections. And I think you have that in your packet. I don't know if you have any comments to that or any concerns about that. No? Anything? Okay. So then we move on to the expense and capital budget themselves. And these are just listed with the appropriate agency next to it. You probably have it in front of you, the expense requests, obviously funding for social services, things that address the encampments, the homelessness, the need for social and wraparound services and supportive services for the homeless tends to be one of the issues that really is at the top of this list as you go through it. You know, rental subsidy for homeless set aside, but there's also a real emphasis on supports for the small businesses in the district, for Broadway in particular, 100,000 jobs in Broadway theater arts alone. So that's really important. Also, schools are very important. So if you go through the list, you'll see, you know, in the capital side, purchasing iPads, making sure that Wi-Fi is available and accessible to every student in the district, making sure that there's a mental health professional, which is something that we have supported with resolutions in each of our schools. I'm not going to go through each one. Most of, if not all of the issues are things that we have either had a resolution about or have discussed either in the larger committee or specifically at BEX. And that's it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? Amazing committee. They've done an incredible amount of work.
I have one question.
Sure. Go ahead,
Just
Craig.
Going down the list, like I see expense requests 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.
Mhm.
Is that in order of priority, or is everything just its own?
No.
Remind me how that works in terms of, is there a priority on this? Or
Right.
is it just these are the
That's
ones?
we've ordered them, and that's in order of our priority.
Okay,
There's no, it's sort of a horse trading sort of thing. It's not, it's really hard to make this data-based. So we have the conversation and we look at things that have come up again and again in terms of complaints and what we think is most important. Obviously, we think some of the homelessness issues that we're seeing in the district and the need for the supportive services for people were really high up there and kept coming up in the discussion. So that goes further up on the list.
no, that's fine. So if I'm reading this correctly on your expenses, the least important, nonetheless important because it's on the list, but the least of the important is the sanitation baskets. And I'm not opining on that. I'm just asking if how.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And we actually, someone said this at committee, it's really hard, we were trying to move them around and
Yeah.
everybody has a view, and to be honest with you, I don't know to what extent at the end of the day, the impact of the ordering.
Right.
Although OMB says, we're putting it in priority order, at the end of the day, we've had things funded that have been, number 20 versus number 1, so.
Have you ever gone back and done a comparison as to what you've put in 2 years ago as to what actually happened and seen how good we are or how good they are at acceding to our requests?
So we do get a response from OMB about what is being funded or from the agencies. But I'm so excited because Marisa is here and she said this is something we could do going forward. So
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, unless you want me to go through a report about the voting issues that we heard about. A lot of it had to do with basically, it's all over now, right? Yay, it's all over. But it had to do with extended hours in voting, more poll sites are needed. There are 2 issues that are 2 bills that are constitutional amendments at the state level that we need to keep our eye on. That are going to be voted on by referendum, but they have to pass 2 successive legislatures. So one is same-day voter registration, so you can register on the date that you vote. And the other is no excuse absentee voting. So that should be coming up, and that's something we're going to actually keep a really close eye on. And the bill to create automatic voter registration has not been signed. So we're gonna keep a close eye on that and see if we can weigh in on that. There's also an attempt to professionalize the Board of Elections, and that's something we're very interested in. It's a state, it's sort of like the MTA, kind of state and city. So part of the makeup of the Board of Elections is the New York State Constitution, so it may require an amendment. Senator Krueger is carrying a bill. It's going to delineate the powers of the exec and the deputy executive director, so that would create more accountability. But there's going to be hearings next year to map this out, and so we're gonna actually keep an eye on that. And then we're going to obviously see how ranked choice voting goes when that happens, which will be the first time in the primaries next year.
Great. Great. Did Rachel do a lot of work on that? Is that something?
Rachel was phenomenal. Yes, Rachel organized that. Rachel is very on it. Yeah, she is going to continue to follow these and bring them back to the committee. Yeah, she's amazing.
Okay, terrific. Anyone have any comments or thoughts? Okay. Thanks, Renee. Let's go to landmarks, Layla.
Yes, sure. So we had one application for landmarks. It was for the Brill Building that is on Broadway, and the cross street is 43rd, I think, in Times Square. The proposal is for a illuminated blade sign that the applicant, which is TD Bank, is applying to install. Basically, they had to come with us because, of course, you know, the Brill Building is an individual landmark, but also because the Brill Building has a signage master plan, and this particular sign is not within the master plan. So what basically they represented to us is that they want to substitute a sign that was approved as part of the master plan that is referred as sign H. And they want instead to install a blade sign that would basically be perpendicular to the facade, and that overall would be much smaller than the previously approved H sign that is part of the master plan. Typically, the rule of the Landmarks Preservation Commission does not automatically approve interior illumination for blade signs. So that was also one of the reasons they had to come to us. Overall, we felt that the proposal was a good one. The sign is smaller, it's going to be less intrusive, it's going to obstruct the facade much less than the sign that was previously approved. But we felt it was important that it read as a substitute to this sign H that is part of the master plan, and that therefore we could support the application as long as it would be seen as an alteration to the master plan rather than an addition to what was already previously approved. The committee felt that it was the proper way to go. We also made some recommendations on how the sign should be installed as minimally intrusive as possible, as to not do any punctures to the terracotta. We also took the opportunity to opine on door pulls that the applicant presented, although everybody was kind of vague as to whether it was part of the purview of this application, but we certainly took the opportunity to comment. We did not like those door pulls, but we also certainly appreciated that, you know, those are, you know, very easily reversible interventions to a landmark building. And we issued a denial unless the master plan would be altered to replace the previously approved H sign with the proposed blade sign. And it was a unanimous vote.
Good. Okay. Anybody have any questions or any comments?
Just one little thing that I wanted to add. One of the committee members, yet again, objected to the wording of the resolve and felt that a conditional approval would be preferable to a deny unless. So once again, you know, I explained why it is actually more relevant and more powerful to issue a deny unless rather than a conditional approval. But, you know, I just wanted to mention it here in case any comment arises at the full board.
Okay, but you got a unanimous.
Yes, it was still unanimous.
Okay, good. I wonder if it's time for you to, what was that? Okay, I wonder if it might be time, Layla, for you to mention that to the full board. You know, the difference between and how in the past, it's really, we are very understanding of how it operates and how they respond in terms of giving a conditional approval versus saying, no, could you please either agree to this or come back with, you know, the way you always talk about it, and that it really works, that you do get applicants that come back after we've given a full denial, and that even a deny unless gets what we want faster or better than a conditional approval.
Yeah, as well as the attention of the relevant agency. You know, I mean, it's really rhetoric, but in the end, a conditional approval is a conditional approval. We just know that when we phrase it as a denial, unless our conditions are met, it is a much clearer message. You know, if it's okay with you and with other members of exec, it would be great if all the chairs of all the committees emphasize that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately it's only, it's one member, and it's only, it's always the same member who's making these objections. I mean, the rest of the committee seems very comfortable with, the wording of our resolve. But I think that if it's, so like board-wide policy to phrase our conditional approval this way, I think that would be great.
I do too. I mean, I think we have to keep emphasizing the fact that we are advisory, and by, being advisory, for us to take the strongest road and the strongest position and try and get the most out of it by negotiating or cajoling, however we do it, that's what's important. We're not there to make anyone feel good or to, not tread on someone's feet, and some board members may not get that. So I would be really pleased if, even in the beginning, you might say, we're doing this as a deny unless for the following reason, and go over it again.
Yes. Yeah.
And I agree. We should
Absolutely.
try and follow this throughout all the committees. Okay, great. Okay, any questions, anyone, or any comments?
I see that Clayton has his hand up.
Clayton?
Yeah, I just had a question about the piece about the master plan, which seems really critical. Is there any chance of getting a response or reconciliation of that issue before Thursday from LPC?
No. And it's very simple. The master plan is actually, was done and negotiated with the building owner. And here the applicant is the tenant. The tenant doesn't care when, the tenant was like, we're fine. If you want to alter the master, we have no objection, but they cannot make this commitment because it's not theirs to make this commitment. I am reasonably confident and hopeful that LPC will agree that, it kind of makes sense. You basically have a set number of signs and you want to keep it the way it is because, that's what the applicant is proposing. They don't like this sign, they want that one. All right, fine. Then, instead of having a net gain of signage, let's do a zero net sum and let's just alter the master plan. So I'm reasonably hopeful that LPC will agree and we'll see eye to eye, and we saw the rationale for our recommendation. Unfortunately, given who the players are, it's not up to the applicant to actually agree.
Understood. Thanks.
Which actually made it that more critical that we issue a denial unless the master plan is altered. And once again, the applicant was like, yeah, I totally get it, it's totally fine. If ownership of the building is fine with it, we have no problem, we totally understand where you're coming from. So yeah.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay, thanks, Layla. You had 2 from land use, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we had one application. It was a BSA application for an applicant that is constructing a hotel on 39th Street in an M1 district, which is M stands for manufacturing. So it's a manufacturing district. And this hotel is actually, this project was issued a DOB permit in 2018, and then subsequently there was a zoning text amendment that was approved by the City Planning Commission and the City Council that makes a hotel use no longer conforming unless the developer seeks a special permit. So in those types of situations, one avenue for a developer is actually to seek an approval by the Board of Standards and Appeal for a renewal of the permit, although the use is no longer conforming. And in order for BSA to approve such renewal of the DOB permit, the applicant needs to establish that 100% of the demolition on the site has been complete, if any demolition was needed, that 100% of the excavation has been complete, and that the foundation has been substantially completed. And so the applicant basically showed us and brought some statements and affidavits to that effect, but without really any substantial evidence, no photographic evidence of where the foundations stand. And they basically brought logs of concrete pouring as well as invoices. And that basically makes the bulk of the evidence that they presented. They also explained to us that although they had received a original DOB permit for this new building, this new hotel, they were actually planning to alter this permit to actually build a taller building that would cantilever and increase the total square footage by like close to 60%. The committee felt that the timing of the permit seeking by the applicant, the lack of clear evidence that the foundation had been poured to what constitutes substantial completion, and the fact that really Committee Board 5 is strongly on board with this new zoning amendment that makes hotels only by special permit in manufacturing districts, meant that we had no choice but to deny this request. We really felt that the evidence that the applicant was bringing really didn't rise to a level that we felt comfortable with, and we really felt that in as short as that, a hotel at that particular location of that particular height and of that particular design was really crappy. So it was a vote for unanimous denial.
Okay. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions? Very thorough resolution. Any comments about it? Other than the fact that it's very comprehensive and very well done. Okay, and that was unanimous, right?
Yes, that was unanimous vote.
Unanimous denial.
Unanimous denial.
Right. Okay. I tuned in to the committee meeting and they didn't have a picture of the building at that time. Oh my
That's
God.
right.
Oh my God.
They made sure that they would only show us the bare minimum.
Ugh.
They certainly made sure they would not show us the rendering of the building. And for those of you who have not seen it yet, it will be included in the reso package.
Prepare yourselves.
It's
Be prepared, right?
It's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. I would mention that we also noted in our resolution that we felt that the design of the original proposal without the cantilever and the only 31-story hotel actually had excessive mechanical rooms. They had a total of, I think, 6 mechanical floors that had a floor-to-floor height that was absolutely gigantic. And that included elements that I have never seen before, like rainstorm water catchment tank located on the 4th floor of a building is the most absurd thing I have ever heard. I mean, why would you catch water on the 4th floor of your building? I mean, it's a disaster waiting to happen. It was just bizarre. So, you know, I think that there's also a DOB issue here that, you know, was not part of the purview, but, you know, I felt it was important to add the concerns that we had. You know, we touched on it very briefly at the committee meeting, but I would be really inclined to actually reach out to the Department of Buildings and, you know, flag that for them, and also flag that for the Department of City Planning. It's really a bad building.
You're being kind. Okay. And you have a report, correct? Or no, this is also an action item.
So yes, it started as a report, and then we decided that it was an action item. So it started as the impetus that we felt to adopt a position on the reconstruction of the Park Avenue malls. And you know, it's an issue that has been in front of the Transportation and Environment Committee. It's an issue that, you know, like touches on you know, a number of other committees, but we felt that it was a little bit of a pressing matter that we Community Board 5 adopt an official position. The reason being that we know that the train shed that is located underneath the Park Avenue malls is in a state of disrepair, and that the renovation of the malls is going to start mostly because of the construction of the new JP Morgan Chase headquarters on Park Avenue and 47th Street. We know that eventually, and we don't know what eventually really is, whether it is 15 years or 30 years or 50 years, but eventually the train shed will be rebuilt, which will require to rip off entirely the malls, you know, pretty much from 45th Street all the way to 57. And we think that it is an opportunity of a lifetime to actually improve them, to have a true, you know, public realm vision, and rather than, you know, leaving it to agencies that basically know how to put asphalt and, you know, a couple of trees or, you know, planters here and there. The other thing is that, you know, as members of the governing group, we really think that, you know, that there's a great value in flagging that and making sure that the resources from the governing group are allocated judiciously to the redesign and reconstruction of the malls. So basically, we felt it was important to have an official position so that going forward, we can continue our advocacy, whether it is at the governing group, you know, with the various city agencies, with MTA, and, you know, very clearly it's a baby that, you know, whose custody is going to be shared between the Parks Committee and TNE, and land use. But it's important that the board has an official position. So the position, you know, we discussed that at committee, and the position is that, you know, we want funds from the governing group earmarked for that, and we want to, you know, get the attention of all the agencies that are involved and telling them that we need something that goes above and beyond the bare minimum, and that you know, it has to be done with public realm in mind. It has to be done with, you know, in a human-centric fashion. They need to be, you know, a usable space. We really need to reclaim this area for a stretch of Midtown that is so deprived of public open space. And that was also a unanimous vote.
Great.
And my apologies for not having completed the resolution on that, but it's coming. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's great. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the Park Avenue malls? the position that the committee has taken. I think it's great. That's terrific.
It's really exciting because it is really an opportunity of a lifetime.
Okay, that takes care of everything. We need to figure out the order, and we're always up with this question of whether we put the budget at the beginning or the end. Do you have any preference, Renee, or do we have any thoughts on when do we get the best input or responses, or doesn't it matter?
I mean, my sense would be if you put it first, you're probably going to get the best or the most responses.
Okay.
Do you want that? I don't mind.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I would say that for my 2 applications, we have, decent size applicants teams. So, if we want to be mindful of their time, we can put them first. If we want to, sort of like
Let them pay a lot.
make them feel the.
No, we'll put, as long as it doesn't matter to you, Renee, let's do, want to do landmarks first and then land use, Leila, and then Bex.
Sure.
Is that good?
That's fine with me. Or we can break it down.
You mean put Bex in the middle? But then you're holding, people longer, which is what you were referring to.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So Marisa, then it runs landmarks, land use, and then Bex.
Okay. Can I, if you haven't already, can you make sure you send in your actual vote counts?
Sure.
Thanks.
And don't
Vicky,
forget
do
to
you want
copy
do
me
the-
because it's helpful for attendance purposes. You know what I'm tracking.
Sure. Vicky, do you want me to do the report first or the budget piece first?
I guess the report.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it really matters, but yeah. Yeah, do the report first.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick question regarding attendance and excused absences.
Oh, that's funny. I was just going to say, how are you handling it when someone says I'm sick? Are you putting it down as excused? I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, so the instance just happened this month, and it was for medical reasons. I think for both members, and it was for land use for both members. Do I have to send the email requesting to be excused to Craig? What is the best way to proceed?
I would suggest that is the best way. How do you feel about that, Craig?
Yeah, so the way I've been doing attendance for the most part, and I wanted to just remind people of something related, but is I take it from like the vote lists, because some of you actually send me your attendance list, but most of you don't. But I take it from the vote. But if somebody, let's say EJ doesn't come to a meeting and he has a medical excuse, there's no way I'm going to know. So Leila, if you can send, in that example, you can either forward me the email, or if you just want to send me a note that says EJ is excused, because as the chair, if you want to keep the reason, that's fine. But as little, I would please let me know either way. Okay. And for those of you who have meetings, when you don't, especially if you don't have voting items, please still send me your attendance list, because there's no way otherwise I would see what attendance would be. Like EJ, if you had a meeting this month, I wouldn't know unless you send it to me. You usually do, but there's no way.
And the other thing I think that we touched upon this just briefly is if the committee's meeting and they don't necessarily, as you just mentioned, Craig, have a vote at the end, then you should be taking attendance, the chair should be taking attendance at the end of the meeting, so that people just don't, tune in once and then tune out, or keep their name up there without any input.
I guess my question on that though, Vicky, is if somebody's in if the meeting is like an hour and somebody's in for 45 minutes and they leave at the end, like if they're there for one vote and there's 2 votes in total, they would be marked as present part.
Right.
If someone is in for a substantial, I mean, I don't think we need to get in exact numbers, but if somebody's there for a substantial amount of the meeting, but they leave after 75% is done, I would think that would probably be a present part if there's no votes. I mean, it just, like if somebody leaves in the last 5 minutes, but they're not there for the attendance, it's kind of like, I would be pissed that I'd be marked as absent.
Yeah.
Just personally. And I think, to me, that's something that's at the discretion of the chair, because I don't know if we need to have an exact count, and I don't think anybody's going to want to watch that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think any chair is going to want to say EJ was on for 75%. I keep picking on EJ, but EJ was on for 75%. Like nobody's going to want to keep track of that. It's just
I know.
he's in the middle, so I'm
Well, that's why years ago we took out the phrase for a substantial part of a meeting, because who's to say what's a substantial part, you know? So I think we just have to be, you know, consistent.
Yeah.
And it would be present part.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody have any thoughts? Any problems? Okay, anything other than what we've discussed that you need to bring up?
I'm sorry, I have one more thing,
Sure.
just because we have a comptroller's audit on Thursday for the district office. And it's one of the things they're looking at specifically are how we keep minutes and the transparency of meetings and meeting notes. So I will find out about actual committee meetings and what is going to be required, but I think probably just as good practice, everyone should start thinking about how they keep their notes. I know for some of you, it's the resolution itself, but when you don't have an actionable item, how are you keeping those notes? And so I think that's something we have to start thinking about.
So right now, Marisa, we don't have an answer as to how extensive the committee notes have to be. We don't really
Right.
know.
I'll have a better idea on Thursday. And perhaps we don't officially need to keep notes, but I think just as a matter of good practice, as best practice,
Sure.
there should be some committee notes for every
Mhm.
meeting.
And also, we're now going to put them on the website, our full board meeting.
We will be required to post them on the website. I know they were for some period of time. I'm not sure why they no longer are, but we will start doing that, and we will go back to July 2019 and then do it going forward.
Yeah, I don't know why they were not put on. I don't know. I know we were not required to, but I thought it was very helpful for them to be on. So I don't know. I'm glad they're going on. I think it's a good idea, but we have to be a little more diligent and be careful with, minutes.
Yeah, we do. I think each committee has to be diligent about keeping minutes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
Vicky, I think I might have mentioned to you at one point, I went to a workshop on minute taking that you had asked me to go to a while, like maybe 2 months ago. And they were asking about, it was mostly CB, community board secretaries and some staff people. And they asked the question about who was taking minutes and who was posting minutes for both full board. And it was all over the place. There was no consistency. And I looked at some, especially in Queens, some of the community board, they have nothing on their websites, but some, especially Manhattan, have a lot, in terms of these minutes. So it's all over the board. But I agree, we need to, take a better look at it.
Okay.
Craig, if you have any suggestion from this workshop that you took, I would be delighted, because, I don't know if you can even call that minutes, but, I scribble during the meeting, pretty much everything that people say. At least I try.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that ends up constituting minutes. It's like, I know what I meant, but if you look at my notes and you were not at the meeting, I don't know if it makes any sense. And then I certainly don't make the effort to then, type it neatly. And, it's like, I can show you, it's like, tons of, pieces of paper, notebooks. So if there, I'm sure there's a better way. So if you have any insights.
And further to that, the question is, where do they go? Do they go to the board office? Do they, what do
Yes, they should come to the board office, because there's ever a question,
Mhm.
there's ever an issue, they should be accessible.
Yeah, and I can tell you from years of sitting to the right of Clayton or to the left of Nick at PSQL and Parks, they do the same thing. They take extensive notes, but I don't think it actually goes anywhere. I mean, I know we have a book in PSQL, but and I can go through my notes from that meeting, but basically the answer was less is more. Like you wouldn't put like this person says this and this person says that. It's more about actionable steps, even if there is no reso. And it could be actually pretty brief in terms of formal minutes, best practices. I can put something together for and present to you guys as committee chairs as to what what they were recommending. But it wasn't your notes of typing extensive notes as to what everybody said. That wouldn't be minutes. That wouldn't be proper minutes. That would be too overboard.
Okay.
I can work on that.
I mean, I can tell you that on other community boards, they do one of two things. They either assign a secretary for each committee, so it's just sort of another leadership position that's added to the community board, or they take turns. And so, a different person on the committee takes the minutes at each meeting.
That's really what we did. That was longstanding practice in Parks, was basically putting members in the hot seat. Somebody has to raise their hand or the meeting isn't going to start. So we would just open it by being like, who on the committee is going to take notes tonight? And I would sit there twiddling my thumbs until somebody raises their hand. And then those were really not formal minutes. They really were just notes of the conversation. And then that document we would just email to Kim at the board office. So that's in some file somewhere. But that practice has also kind of fallen to the wayside in recent months. So I think that's something we can easily start up again.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know we're not alone. This is something, I guess, that everybody's going to have to pay attention to now. Okay. Anything else? All right. Seeing no other business, we will adjourn and I will see you all on Thursday evening. God willing, and the creek don't rise. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.